Hello, everyone, and welcome to the American Family Insurance DreamBank, where we believe in the transformative power of dreams. I'm Jenna, and on behalf of DreamBank, we're thrilled to have you with us for today's event. For those who have attended our virtual or in-person events in the past, welcome back. And for anyone that is joining us for the first time, I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to DreamBank. Here at American Family Insurance, life's better when you're under our roof because when you feel totally supported and protected, any dream is possible. That's why we created DreamBank, an inspirational community destination and virtual experience designed to help people pursue, achieve, and protect their dreams. And now, I'm thrilled to introduce you to our speaker, Audrey Cramer. Audrey is a coach, speaker, and author passionate about helping people show up authentically and build meaningful connections. With a background in counseling, psychology, and professional coaching, she equips individuals with practical tools to elevate their relationships and leadership skills. Please join me in welcoming Audrey. Thank you so much for being here, Audrey. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Jenna, so much for that wonderful introduction. And I am so excited to be here with all of you today. Seeing people from Texas, California, people from Wisconsin that I know are here. So welcome, welcome. I am so grateful to have you guys here. DreamBank is a particularly meaningful space to me. I first found out about DreamBank in 2016, 2017. And they hosted an event called the Big Dream Gathering. And basically what this was is there was a gentleman, Mitch Matthews, that came and he had everyone write down their dreams on pieces of paper. A couple of mine were to live in Paris. I'll talk more about that later. And also to become a coach. And we posted these dreams up on the wall. We wrote down what resources we had, what resources we needed, and people walked around the room and wrote words of encouragement. If they had resources to share, they would jot those down. If they were willing to connect, they would write down their phone number and email address. And it was just such a transformative experience that really changed the trajectory of my entire life. That's actually how I'm standing here with you guys today. And I'm just so grateful for the opportunity from DreamBank. So if you haven't followed them on social media and you just saw this as a sponsored ad, do yourself a favor and go click follow. If you're in the Madison area, go to their space downtown. It just has such good energy and it's so inspiring and such a wonderful place to be. So yeah, that's my story about DreamBank and how I got connected to them. I am so excited to be here with you guys today to talk about the connections that we have with people and how that can help us make our own dreams come true. Before we get started though, I just have a quick question. If you could have lunch or coffee or tea or whatever you want with whoever in the entire world, could be living, could be not living, who would you want to have that meal with? Who would you want to have that chat with? I'm going to be asking several questions today, so go ahead and pop that in the chat. I always get some really good answers to this question, so I'm excited to see who people are thinking about. Warren Buffett. Ooh, that's a good one. My dad. Oh, that's so sweet. Family is so cool. So if you have the opportunity to spend time with them, the stories that you get are absolutely incredible. I love it. I often get names that I don't recognize, and that's always really interesting to me. So I like to go look them up afterwards. Maya Angelou is a good one, a late loved one. We never have enough time with the people that we love, so I definitely can appreciate that for sure. You guys have some great answers. Ooh, Melanie, yes, thank you. Grandfather's time in war, family history, etc. It's crazy the things that we learn that we never would have known. My grandfather also passed away a couple of years ago, and he had told me before he passed some stories of when he was in the military, and they were just the wildest, craziest things to learn. This is Oliver. He's going to try to turn my computer off. Awesome. Let me click on this, see if I can scoot forward. Well, just a little bit about me as we get started. My name is Audrey. This is my wonderful, absolutely amazing fiance, about to be husband, Yarrick. I stole his last name early because, you know, it's a couple more months. What's the difference? And he is my absolute biggest supporter and cheerleader. I could talk to you for a week straight about him and not run out of things to say. So I've got a few minutes about him later, so I will gloss over that. And then these are our two cats. This is Camille on the left. She is our resident podiatrist. She is obsessed with feet. Every time we come in, she has to inspect our shoes and make sure that they're need worthy and that she can really dig her claws in. She chases my feet under the covers, only my feet, never his feet. So that's her job around the house. And then Oliver, that you just saw on screen here, he's our resident electrician. He likes to climb on lights. He likes to unscrew light bulbs, knock over lamps, anything light related, you name it, he is there. So that's my little family. And then I recently published my first book, Finding Your Tribe, Building Connections That Light the Way Forward. This book is just such a love letter to all the people in my life and the ways that they have helped me achieve every single dream that I could have thought of and more. This was a book that I originally had an idea to write because I told a story about my soon-to-be husband, and my mentor at the time said, "You should write a book about that." And I thought for a while, and I was thinking, how am I going to write a book about me and my life? And in my head, it was just kind of stuck that it was going to be an autobiography. I'm like, man, I'm not some big famous name. Nobody's going to read this except for my friends and family. And then, they're doing it as a favor to me, right? And I sat on it for months and did nothing until one day it clicked. I was attending a conference for coaches and speakers, and I was just sitting in my chair. The topic wasn't even related to writing or anything. And I was like, oh, what if I take the message of that story and craft a book around that message? The importance of surrounding yourself with the right people. And that's what I did. I got so many great stories from people who were willing to contribute from their own life. Dug up some science and research. I put a lot of myself into there. And with the help of the people around me, this book came into fruition. And it has been one of the coolest things I've ever done. I actually picked it up and started rereading it the other day. And I was like, man, I wrote this. This is really cool. But I could not have done it without the people around me. And that's what I want to encourage today for you is to think about your tribe. Who do you have surrounding you? What are your dreams and goals? And how can we make those absolutely the best part of your life? Because you definitely have things that the world needs. And I am so excited to help you get there. Now, I do have a few expectations for today. My first expectation is that you just show up. You're already here, which is great. So tune in as much as you can, soak in as much information as you can, and participate as much as you can. Some questions will be a little more challenging than others, but it's going to be a good time. Also, dream big. Now, I don't necessarily mean in size. You could be dreaming of moving to another country. That's kind of a big dream. I would love to move to France someday. But you could also be dreaming of building a hummingbird oasis in your backyard, which is another dream of mine. And they seem a little bit different in size, but actually they're both really big dreams and really important. So whatever it is that you have in your heart, there is no dream too big, there is no dream too small. But I want you to really think about it. Typically, what happens as we become adults is we lose that sense of childlike wonder. We lose that sense of imagination. We get stuck in the day-to-day of everything, and we stop dreaming. We stop having visions for what we want for our lives. And I don't want that for you. So today you have permission to dream big. Part of this is also just being honest with yourself. This can be really difficult because we tell ourselves all kinds of little things. And once we say it enough times, we start to believe our own little tiny white lies of, oh, it's fine. This is okay. I'm okay with this. But be really honest with yourself today about maybe some things that you're struggling with, some relationships that maybe aren't sitting quite right, or some places where you really would like to step up and shine. Because the more authentic you can be with that, the better off you're going to be. just honor other people's experiences in the room. I may ask some questions and have you guys type some things in the chat. And some of you guys have already been so brave and courageous and vulnerable by posting things about late loved ones in the chat. And I super appreciate that. So just honor what everybody has to bring to the table. It creates such a unique experience to have you guys' perspectives. And so I'm super excited to see what everybody's going to bring together. Jenna, there's a question if the replay will be shared. So I don't know if you can answer that in the chat real quick.
Yes, it will be. It'll be shared on our YouTube channel.
Excellent. One more social media thing to follow for DreamBank. Excellent. And last thing for today is just make today meaningful. Not everything I talk about is going to have a point to everybody. So even if you get one or two little golden nuggets throughout today, I will be super happy and excited about that. For those of you who are just popping in, go ahead and throw where you're joining from in the chat. I would love to see it. And then Lily posted a question in the chat just now. If you guys have questions at any time, I'm going to try my best to keep an eye on that throughout. So ask away. Ooh, we have Minnesota in the house in Idaho. Excellent. Green Bay. Yeah. I haven't been to Green Bay yet. I do want to check in with you guys about how you are feeling today before we get started. So, which Oliver are you today? It is lunchtime, so maybe you're a solid number 8 or number 9, hungry or thirsty. Maybe you feel like screaming into the void, which is number 2, which could also be interpreted as yawning. Number 3, that lovely sense of ennui. And number 5 may look a little bit crazy, but honestly, that's a picture of Oliver sleeping, believe it or not. I took a video because I'm like, nobody's gonna believe that this is him asleep. We've got some cozy crazy in there. We've got a wistful longing to be outside. I love it. Here in Madison, we're getting all the Canadian wildfire smoke, and apparently there's also wildfire in California. So pretty much every day they're just like, don't go outside, which is horrible for my step count, but. Ooh, Norma, yes. Okay, my next task is to get a picture of Oliver. I'm going to pick him up and dance with him and put some music notes around it, and I should add it to this little box. Ooh, 7, but interpreted as curious. Nice. Renee, he is handsome, and his stupid little face is so cute, and he knows it. Awesome. All right, guys, it's story time. I want to talk to you about the real Paris. So, Paris has always been my dream. I was required to take French in middle school. I hated it. I got super bored, and I was so thankful when I didn't have to take it anymore. But I always really missed it. And I found myself just in love with the language and the culture and studying it on my own, even though I wasn't required to do it in a class anymore. Come to find out, my great grandmother's second language was English. Her first language was French. So I've got some family heritage in there. It doesn't take long to go back in my history to find people from Europe, France, and that area, and even French Canadian. So this is definitely something that I've just randomly aligned with, and I've always been so in love with it. But I never had the opportunity to go. And I decided one day, back when I was just single me, that, it can't be that hard, right? So I looked it up, and surprise, surprise, it would only take about $5,000 to save up, and then I could go and have a great time. So I made a plan that I was going to start saving, and 2013 was going to be my year of solo travel. And then I met my ex. We had been friends for a couple of years. I wasn't particularly attracted to him, but one day, for some reason, some weird little thing clicked in my head, and we got married and moved across the country from North Carolina to California. It wasn't the good California like the beaches and the palm trees. It was the desert of California. But I was newly in love. It was a new, exciting adventure. It was great. And I started to share my dreams. And I said, hey, I would really love to go to Paris, France. That would be absolutely incredible. And I started speaking little clips and phrases of French around the house just to try to get excited. And he would always reply to me in English, I have no idea what you're saying. It was devastating. And we talked about it and we decided one day that, you know what, let's do it. Let's go to Paris. So we went to Paris, but it was Paris, Las Vegas. The Eiffel Tower was on the small side. It was still bright and shiny, obviously, because it's Vegas lights. The crepes were like American crepes. It was okay. Nobody spoke a lick of French. And it just was a really weird feeling of I sacrificed my dream to make this our kind of dream. And I feel like this is kind of a running theme in our relationship. And over time, that proved to be very true. And I decided, you know what? I don't want to have to give myself up in order to serve this relationship. So I really thought about what I wanted. I set some boundaries and I ended up walking away from that relationship. And speaking of dancing, I danced into my next relationship. At the time, my fiance was a ballroom dance instructor, and I was a student, and then I became an instructor. And when I started teaching, we started dancing together professionally. And as we got to know each other, we decided it just makes sense to do everything together. So we started dating, we moved in, we were dancing together, riding to work, going home from work, sharing meals, sharing stories. And I felt like I'll share my dream of going to Paris again. So I shared it, and he was so excited from the start. He had also never traveled internationally, and he really wanted to, and he thought this was going to be great. He practiced clips and phrases of French with me, and I was like, yes, this is it. We saved our money, and we flew to Paris, France. It was an absolutely incredible trip. I had a great time, and actually, with the Eiffel Tower in the background, the real Eiffel Tower with all the glittery sparkles that come on a regular basis, we had that in the background with our photographer, and he got down on one knee and proposed. Now, poor Yarrick, he proposed in French because he had practiced speaking this phrase in French, and that was the only phrase that I didn't study. So it was a little awkward because he's asking me, and I'm just standing there going, quoi, quoi. I was so confused, but it ended up working out okay. All of this to say, this is the absolute power of somebody who also believes in your dream and who's going to stand behind you to help you get there. So I just wanted to share that with you. Now, one of the things that made this trip possible for me, like I mentioned, is just getting really clear on who I was and what I wanted. So let's talk a little bit about how to give back to yourself. You are faced with choices every single day. I know Brenda, he is a dream come true. We've been together, our wedding will be our 6-year anniversary, and I'm so excited. As we face these choices every day, I should stop looking at chat, I'm getting distracted. We make so many decisions on how we show up to other people. And some of this is natural, right? We put on this tiny mask of, I'm going out with friends, and it's this particular friend who's wild and crazy, so I'm going to be a little bit wild and crazy. I'm doing a work event and I have to be very professional, so I'm going to look very professional. I'm with family, so I'm going to lighten up a little bit. I'm with my partner, so I'm going to be a little bit more intimate in the information that I share and how I show up to that. So all of these little tiny things that show up, it's kind of a natural thing, but sometimes what we do is we actually change who we are to show up in that relationship. And what I want for you is to be authentically you and take those authentic bits of yourself and show up in those relationships. But it's difficult because sometimes we have all of these little choices that are made for us every day. If you think about doing a Google search, for example, you type in what you want to know, you hit enter, Google already has it all figured out, and they send you pages upon pages of results. And you look at page 1 because those are the most relevant ones, right? Sure, we're assuming Google has done their job. Page 2, you might look at, nobody looks at page 3. Why would anybody create a page 4 and beyond? But some of that decision making of what you want to see has already landed there for you. The clothes that you're wearing, unless you made them yourself, and even then it's still a little bit decided for you, somebody decided the shape and the pattern of that garment. Somebody else from the store decided to buy that piece and have it on display and get advertised to you. So some of those choices have already been made. And that can be really difficult because it's really convenient to not have to spend the time to make those choices ourselves. It's already done. It takes a lot off of our plate. It reduces our decision fatigue. It's fantastic. And sometimes that can be really helpful, but sometimes it can also cause a little bit of distress. Yesterday, for example, I went to the dentist for an appointment to get a crown. And while I was sitting in the chair, I got up to use the restroom, came back. I thought I had 30 minutes to just chill out. And the dentist and the assistant were still there. And they said, "Hey, you remember that filling you were supposed to get done? Do you want to just go ahead and do it now?" And my mouth was so tired already from the work they had already done. And I typically only schedule dental appointments one at a time because I know I can't handle it. But it was there and it was convenient and I didn't have to reschedule. So even though it was like physically hurting me, I was like, yeah, you know what? Let's do it. Let's just get it taken care of. And it wasn't really a good idea, but it wasn't really a bad idea. And oftentimes, as we're making those decisions, we are showing up for other people at the expense of ourselves. And we oftentimes don't get to take a step back and say, what do I want in this? How am I going to show up for me? But I want you to know that that choice is always yours. It's nice to have that sense of belonging, but also don't give yourself up for it. When the pandemic started, I joined TikTok, and it was incredible to me the amount of creativity and the things that people were posting. And there were sometimes people who posted the weirdest, most random stuff, and they would preface it to say, "This is just for me. Literally, nobody's going to like this, but I'm going to put it out there because I want to do it." And those are the posts that would always have thousands upon thousands of likes and comments and shares. So you never know who needs your exact brand of weird and crazy. And I just want to encourage you to really be there in that space for yourself. Now, how do you figure out what's important to you? This is a little bit difficult. This is where we dive a little bit into values. If you're familiar with psychology at all, there's a book called the DSM-5, it's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, and it's basically a list of everything that's wrong with you and all the details of how to diagnose that wrong thing, and it's really strongly pathology focused. But what if you're trying to look at what's right with you? This is a question that Dr. Martin Seligman, Dr. Chris Peterson, and a bunch of other psychologists decided to explore. They are kind of branded as the founding fathers of positive psychology. And the idea is that you're not going from illness to lack of illness. You're going from lack of illness to wellness, sense of meaning and purpose. And what they did was they searched thousands upon thousands of texts over a very long period of time, centuries of time, over all different parts of the world. And they found that these positive qualities kind of got categorized into different themes. And those themes are what they determined were the 6 virtues. And under each of those virtues, there were character strengths. And so the virtues that showed up time and time again were wisdom, justice, courage, temperance, humanity, and transcendence. And there were all of these character strengths that fell underneath that. And the idea was that typically a person would have 2 to 3 strengths that are their top strengths. And what I mean by top strengths is if you were to take that strength away, you would lose a sense of who you are. You wouldn't really know what to do with yourself anymore. I'm super big on fairness, and I'm super big on gratitude and appreciation of beauty and excellence. I'm the one during a musical who's sitting in the audience crying, even though nothing sad has happened. I'm just so excited for all of the actors and musicians that put everything together, and just to have that beauty and excellence on the stage. So those are your strongest values, those top 2 or 3. Sometimes these can get in the way. For example, I like to hold the door for people, and I'm really big on gratitude. So if I go out of my way to hold the door for you and you don't say thank you to me, I am now silently judging you because clearly I went out of my way to hold the door. This used to drive my mom nuts when I was a kid because I would hold the door for literally everyone. It's a rule, you're supposed to hold the door, and she'd be waiting for me for minutes on end, and she hated it. So I want you to take a second to think about, what are some of your top values? What are some areas where those values maybe get in the way of things that you would like to achieve? And maybe what are some values that you'd like to work on or strengthen a little bit? I would love it if you guys feel comfortable sharing some of your values in the chat. And I will say they don't have to come from this list. This is just a conveniently already put together choice has been made for you list. But if you have other ones like spending time with pets or family, whatever the case may be, that is also totally fine. So go ahead and jot that down. And if you don't feel comfortable sharing at any time, that is also totally fine. I'll just leave some space and drink some water. Ooh, integrity, that's a good one. Consistency, yes. Loyalty, yes. Loyalty's so hard because it's so good, but some people can be loyal to a fault. And that's really difficult. Loyalty again, excellent. Empathy, yes. Tester's been working on gratitude, really makes a difference. It really does. There's a book called The Gratitude Diaries, and this woman spent a year just being grateful, and every month she focused on a different thing. And that's such a good story. So if you get a chance to read it, I highly recommend. Integrity, trust, appreciation, perseverance, yes. Creativity, curiosity, humor, such a good one. But you guys are awesome. Cool. So now that we kind of have an idea of what's important to us, we need to protect that at all costs. This one's difficult. But I will say, you are no more important than anyone else. This is going to sound weird, just roll with it. You're no more important than anyone else. But you're no less important either. And I really, 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 really want you to hear this. I have so many people in my life, clients, friends, family, that are so ready and willing to give to other people, so ready and willing to forgive when someone makes a mistake. But when it's their turn and something happens, it's a big deal. It's a disaster. It's the end of the world. They apologize profusely, or they don't deserve to take time off, or they don't deserve to have nice things. In fact, we have really nice plates at the house that I like using on occasions where I want to feel a little extra special. And then we have regular plates. And my fiance told me the other day, like, oh, you take the fancy plates. And I'm like, no, you also get the fancy plates. And it's hard because we want to be humble, right? We want to be grateful for what we're given. And that's difficult. So I just want you to know that you are worthy and valid exactly as you are. You deserve the same love and empathy and gratitude that you give to everybody else. And sometimes it's really hard to make space for, but it's really important. Now, when we talk about setting boundaries, this is often kind of the face that happens, right? Boundaries are difficult. They're really hard. Part of the reason is, we want to seem like we're ready and willing to help. We're ready to make sacrifices. That's what you're supposed to do as a good person. In my last relationship, before I learned to set boundaries, it was, well, maybe I just haven't tried hard enough, or let me try one more thing. At the time, I was finishing my master's in counseling psychology. So I was like, okay, well, if I just steer the conversation this way, maybe I'll get a better result. And I need to try harder, and I need to be, the best that I can be. And it's really hard to see when that's starting to take away from us. We may not want to set boundaries because we're worried that that's going to damage the relationship that we're in, whether that's friendship, coworker, whatever the case may be. But those boundaries are really important. Boundaries are what give you the space to show up as you are and feel comfortable and confident in that space. And I cannot stress that enough. There's a gentleman called Ramit Sethi. I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong. I heard him say it the other day and I am forgetting already. But he has a YouTube channel. He has a Netflix special. He's a best-selling author. Best-selling, did I say spelling? His spelling is also really good. Best-selling author, and he gives a lot of financial advice. And I really like the concept that he puts in this, and I want to translate it to boundaries. The concept that he talks about with money is that when you have money, you can either just kind of spend it randomly and it'll disappear faster than you know it and you won't have anything. Or you can be really intentional with where that money goes. Say, for example, you have this super top of the line Jordan sneaker collection, and you want to have your money for that, and that's really important to you. So what you do is you cut back on all the other spending that isn't related to that, doesn't bring you joy, and then you have all that extra space to add to your sneakers. Or maybe you like having friends over every week for dinner and you want to have money to buy groceries and pull up at the table. And it's just really nice to have that. So you're going to cut back on your own eating out so that you can treasure that time with family and friends. And I love that idea because if you're really being intentional with your energy, you have so much space to do the things that you want to do. When we're continually serving other people at the cost of ourselves and we just go, it's fine. Oh, it's okay, really. Oh, no, 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 it's not a problem. No, don't worry about it. It's totally fine. It's kind of like having little tiny energy leaks that out of nowhere, you're just running on a flat tire and you have no idea how it happened. So being intentional and shifting that energy to this is what's meaningful and important to me, and all of that other energy that doesn't matter, I'm not going to worry about it. That can help patch up those tiny leaks so that you can continue to show up as a whole human. That being said, let's talk about how to set boundaries because that can also be really challenging. Step number one, figuring out what's triggering you. I'm a co-chair on a committee that every time we have a planning meeting, we are continually running 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes over that meeting to the point where I've had to step up and say, resident timekeeper, we have 5 minutes left and we haven't put down anything that we want on the agenda. We need to get that done. So what can we get done in the next 5 minutes? And typically 1 or 2 minutes after the meeting ends, I will just leave the meeting. I could be just going back to my own space. I don't particularly have another meeting following it, but having that time go over is a really big trigger for me. Partly because we're not discussing it. There's no mutual agreement of, hey, we have more work to get done. Does everybody have another 15 minutes? So I'm not getting a choice to commit to that. It's just kind of happening. So that's part of my thing, but maybe something else triggers you. Maybe you go home for the holidays and there's one family member who's super cantankerous and having these discussions that you would just rather not be in. And that's a trigger for you because you always get sucked into these arguments and you really don't want to be there. So identify kind of what that trigger is for you. Then we need to figure out how are we going to respond to that trigger? For me, it's thank you so much. The meeting is done. I'm going to go now. Maybe it's I really just can't have this discussion with you right now, so I'm going to go in the other room, or we can change the subject and just kind of laying it out on the table. Now, there are a few ways to go about communicating. You could do so very passive aggressively. Say your neighbor wants you to watch their dog over the holidays, and they always ask you to watch the dog over the holidays. And you don't particularly like this dog. He's really barky. He bites at your ankles, much like my cat. And he's just always causing trouble and always needs to go outside. And you just don't really have the energy for it. But you feel like you should watch this dog. And so you've just continually said yes. So you could just be passive aggressive and go, oh, yeah, sure, I don't mind. I'll watch your dog again. Maybe there's a note of sarcasm in there, but you're not really putting your needs forward in this situation. You're just kind of giving in to the other person in a sense. You could do a complete 180 and just be super aggressive and be like, your stupid dog is the worst dog I have ever watched in my entire life, and I hate doing it. And I don't know why you keep asking me, and I think it's really rude. So you just need to stop talking to me about your dog. Maybe that's a little much, right? And again, we're trying to preserve these relationships as much as we can. So maybe not passive aggressive because sarcasm is never a good look. And maybe not aggressive because that's not a good look either. But we can be assertive. And assertive would be more showing up in a way that is more like, I'm really sorry, I can't watch your dog over the holidays, but I really do hope that you find somebody to take care of that for you. Notice I didn't feel a need to justify myself and give 16 different explanations as to why I can't watch the dog. I simply just left it at, nope, sorry, I can't do that this time, and I wish you all the best. I'm still preserving my boundaries, but I'm also respecting the other person. Now, sometimes, depending if it's your employer or relationship, a little bit of explanation and context might be really helpful. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're building it. And then most important thing, and I cannot stress this enough, is to communicate that boundary. I had a friend, I served in the military from 2006 to 2010. God, that was a long time ago. And I had a friend that we would spend a lot of time together, and she was just consistently complaining about her relationship and all of these other things. And I kept trying to offer her like feedback and suggestions, and I'm here for you, and how can I help? And it was always no, no, no. And then she would keep complaining. And I got to the point where I was like, I don't need this kind of energy in my life. Like, if you're not going to make an effort to change. The problem was I didn't communicate that to her. I just decided, nope, we're done. So I kind of cut her out without saying anything to her. And ghosting is not good in terms of maintaining relationships. But over time, I grew. Last year, I was working with a personal trainer, and we were having it was a decent session. We were having good communication. She's nice, she's knowledgeable. I enjoyed working with her well enough. And the problem was she was a little too nice because she was talking to me, and then she asked me a question. And right after she asked me the question, she started talking to the trainer with his client on the other side of the equipment. And in my head in that moment, I was seething. I was like, why would you ask me a question if you're not even going to listen to the answer? Like, you're not participating in this at all. I'm too much of a chicken to say something in the moment. So I went home and I was just like reeling about it. And I decided, you know what? I deserve to be treated better than this. So I'm going to request a new trainer because that behavior is unacceptable to me. And I realized that was old me talking. This thing isn't working and I deserve better. I'm just walking away without saying anything. And it almost won. But I decided, you know what? She deserves the chance to hear what I'm struggling with and make an adjustment. And then if she doesn't make the adjustment, then I'll move on. And if she does, we can work it out. It was absolutely terrifying. And I told her so. I walked into my next session and I said, this conversation really scares me. I'm really terrified right now, but this is really important. And I explained to her how she made me feel in the session prior. And she apologized profusely. She was so sorry. And she said, oh my God, thank you so much for telling me. And we had a really good relationship for our remaining sessions together. She was really invested in our time. And I felt really good about that because one, I was brave enough to say something, which yay for me. Two, it changed our relationship for the better, and I felt like I could be really open with her. But three, I'm imagining that had an impact on some of her other clients as well. Maybe she started to show up more fully for them. So it's really important to communicate those boundaries to people so that you give them the opportunity to understand where you're coming from, and also for you to understand where they're coming from. There's that saying, seek first to understand and then be understood. And most of the time, I find if I seek to understand, I don't need to be understood anymore. But sometimes those boundaries are still really important. So, as a question for you, what are you willing to protect? What is something that you want to set a boundary around? And I will leave some space so you can type things in the chat because we're getting some really long, good answers in here. So, what's something that you want to set a boundary around? Or maybe why it'll be hard to communicate that boundary. If you're not comfortable typing in the chat, you can imagine that you're on the beach in the photo with the waves coming in. Ooh, being fair. I like that. Beautiful sunset. Ooh, Renee, that's a really good question. I'm going to come to that in a second. We'll just give it a little more space. Protecting time away from work. Nice. Not overcommitting, especially the calendar. Protecting your peace. Yes, I love it. So Renee had a really good question. What are the signs that I need to set a boundary with others before the tone needs to be sharp to get your boundary across? This is hard because you only have so much control over that. I think the biggest thing here is to really be clear about yourself. If you don't know what your boundaries are, there's no way for you to set them and communicate them. If this is something that you're deciding midway through, it's sometimes going to be a little bit hairy. I used to work at a group home, and if we weren't following through on expectations with the boys, and then all of a sudden we put our foot down, it tended to turn into mass chaos for about a week or so. But I think if you're really clear about what is your trigger, what is your boundary, and then just set that from the very beginning as much as you can, and have clear communication. Sometimes the difficult thing about this is that when other people have an emotional reaction, we get sucked into that emotion and then it just starts to escalate. So noticing also internal triggers of, am I getting ramped up? Do I feel anxious? Is my heart beating? Am I clenching my fists ready to knock somebody out? Please don't do that. So are you noticing internal signs that this is escalating? Because the more you can recognize that, the more you can sort of realize, okay, where am I at in this process? And your best friend in this case is just to stay as neutral as possible and to, again, just restate that boundary very clearly of, hey, I told you if this happened, I was going to do this. So I'm going to go do this now. Most of the time people snap when it's an expectation that isn't being held consistently over time, or if they have some kind of emotional investment in keeping you from maintaining that boundary. And that's where you need to decide, do I maintain this relationship or do I need to find a way out? This could be a toxic workplace. This could be a friendship that isn't going very well. And you only have control over you. So as much as you can, keep your message clear and consistent. If you start to notice that there's an escalation, feel free to hit the timeout button and tell that person, I'm getting really riled up about this right now. I need to take a step away, but I do want to come back to this when we're both in a neutral space and we can talk about it respectfully as two adults. And hopefully that kind of keeps things clear. The other thing too is that we typically only practice skills when we need them and not beforehand, right? If you have depression or anxiety, once you get into that depressive episode, it's really hard to pull those tools if you haven't been practicing them on a consistent basis. So if you're only pulling out boundaries when there's an issue and it's become a big deal, that's also going to make it very, very difficult. Hopefully that answered your question. And then sometimes tone does need to get sharp. I feel like it has to go a really long way before it gets to that point though. So please let me know if that was clear, if that answered your question. Wonderful, excellent. Yeah, letting go of guilt with boundaries. Thank you, Melanie. That is so huge. We feel so guilty when we set a boundary for ourselves. But the thing is, we're also setting an example for other people. If you're a parent and you are giving everything to your kids, or you're an employee and you're giving everything to your workplace, you are sending the message to other people that that's okay and they can do the same thing. And that's not always the case, because then you turn around and see your kids or your coworkers doing the same thing and you go, why are you doing that? You shouldn't be answering emails on vacation, like cut it out. So being able to set the example and say, hey, it's okay to have boundaries. It's okay to show up and not feel guilty about that. That's a really big deal. Tezra, I appreciate you throwing in, you've been using ChatGPT to practice hard conversations. That's a very useful tool. I have done that myself sometimes, and I've even said, hey, I'm really struggling with this, and I don't know why this is triggering me. What is going on here? And it kind of helps me get clarity around how I'm feeling, but then also practice how to communicate that with other people. So that's a really good one. Oh, Norma, my heart goes out to you. Thank you so much for sharing. Awesome. Woohoo. Did I click on the chat and now it won't do my PowerPoint? There we go. Yay. Now that you guys are super set in who you are and you're super clear on your boundaries, I want you to know that you are not alone. Even if you lived in your house completely shut out from literally everyone, there is community surrounding you. If you think about the clothes that you're wearing, there are the people who grew the plants to make the fibers to make the fabric. There are the people who cultivated that fabric. There are the people who made the creative design of how the fabric was going to stitch together. There are the people who actually created that by using machines. There are the people who made the machines. There are the people who drove the parts from place to place, and then the gas stations that supplied the gas for the trucks to go from place to place. There are an infinite number of people who have put their time and energy into everything you do. There's a tool called mindful eating, and it's that same thing. As you're eating, you're thinking about the farmers who grew the food and the people who trucked it over and the grocery stores that kept it fresh and ready to go for you and the cashiers who checked you out and the people who made your car to get you back home. And so keeping that in mind, you are absolutely never alone. AA, I see your question there. I'm going to come back to it. So as you start to think about your community, just realize who it is that you have around you. And I'm going to tie this back to AA's question. What about if it's family that is pushing back a lot when you're setting your boundaries? This could just be a case of misunderstanding, like you don't understand the values of the other person and why they're coming from the place that they're coming from. But it could also be an unsolvable problem. There are a lot of, okay, so I'm going to out myself as millennial. There are a lot of older generations of parents who are like, I don't understand why my children are going non-contact with me. And there are some parents who are going through their own therapy to figure out, how did I have a part in making this relationship so dysfunctional? And sometimes it's not the parents, sometimes it's the kids, and sometimes it's a crazy aunt or uncle or whoever it is. There's oftentimes an unseen dynamic there that we don't have a lot of control over. If you have an opportunity to talk to them and have a candid conversation about values and why things are kind of clashing together and have a mutual agreement about how you would like to move forward, if that's not possible, then it's always okay to say, hey, you know what? This is how I'm going to connect with you. If I have a value of being a good daughter, but my mom is being a crazy weirdo, I can still check in, but I can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to text you once a week, and that's how I'm going to show up in this space because it's really difficult for me. And if it still continues to be more and more difficult, or they're just not understanding, you're not obligated to have a relationship with that person just because they're family. So maybe you need to work out your own issues with that person in therapy. Maybe they need to go to therapy. I recommend therapy for everybody because it's amazing, especially when you have the right therapist. But, you know, that's not always an option for everybody. Not everybody's interested in that. But if you have somebody that you really just can't connect with and you have tried everything you can think of, you're not obligated to connect with that person. I know that gets really messy and that's really hard to do. So it's a really, really touchy space for sure. But yeah, I have lived away from family for a very long time. I have a couple of people that I'm really connected with, but for the most part, my family is my chosen friends that I have around in my space. So it can be really difficult and you know, show up the best that you can. That to say, we're all better together. So if you can make things work with the people around you, absolutely great, right? I was just talking about how people in the community are contributing to everything in ways that are really unseen. I hope that answered your question, so please let me know. And there have been multiple studies that have shown the more diverse people that you have around you, the faster, more efficient, and actually better results that you get versus when you're by yourself or surrounded by people who think exactly the same as you. So having those differing viewpoints is really important. I'm keeping an eye on time, so if I seem like I'm going fast, I want to make sure I get this in. So who are your influencers? These could be actual people in your real life, but they could also just be notable figures. For example, I watch a lot of YouTube videos from Simon Sinek, Trevor Noah. I love listening to Brene Brown, Ramit Sethi, like I mentioned, reading books by Dr. Anthony Fauci when he was talking about the AIDS epidemic and the pandemic that came through and his whole experience with that. I read a book by the former CEO of Pepsi, Indra Nooyi, and her experience of, you know, sacrificing so much time with her family to put towards the company, but all the incredible changes that she was able to make. And it's really interesting to read those because you can kind of reflect on those themes and see how they incorporate into your own life. And sometimes it changes your mindset. You are what you eat, right? So the top people that you surround yourself with, whether they're positive thinkers, negative thinkers, whatever the case may be, you want people who are going to influence you in the direction that you want to grow. And then who makes you feel safe? One of my favorite things with Trevor and Simon is they did a podcast one time and they were talking about friendship. And the podiatrist is making her way across the screen. And what Simon was saying was those really, really true friends that you have are people that you would be willing to call when something amazing and incredible happens. It's sometimes easy to talk about the negative things, but when you really find someone who connects with your success, those are really great people. If you think about it, the last really big successful thing that you were so excited to share with somebody, Who did you go to and what was their response? Were they like, oh yeah, that's really cool, or oh, great job? It's not really supportive. It's not very exciting. You don't even feel like they were really listening to you, because if it's something that really means something to you, they are going to light up and go, oh my God, that's absolutely incredible. I know you can do this. You're going to be so great. I'm so excited for you. Those people that lift you up are going to be absolutely your best people. So think about who it is that makes you feel safe emotionally, psychologically, to show up and actually be your authentic self, and spend more time with those people. There's actually a concept called strawberry people, which I really love. And it was a neurodivergent person who decided, hey, you know what? I'm getting all these messages and emails from people, and I'm not really connecting with the people who are really meaningful in my life. So what they did was they took their top handful of people that they said, I want to make sure when this person texts me, I'm getting back to them as soon as possible. If I miss their call, I'm going to call them back. If they email me, I'm going to get on it right away. And they put a little strawberry emoji next to that person's name in their phone, so that when they got a text or phone call, their brain was going, this is an important person and I want to have a meaningful connection with them. And I just love that idea so much. So I have heart emojis all through my phone for like the top 5 or 6 people that I want to make sure I'm really fostering that connection with them. And then celebrating other people. This is so huge, because as we lift more people up, they're also willing to turn around and do the same for us. And it's just an absolutely incredible feeling. Now, a difficult piece, and I wish I had more time for this, asking for help. This is so, so hard, right? We don't want to be a burden on people. We need to just figure it out ourselves. But it doesn't have to be hard to ask for help. This is a perspective shift that I had in my life that I've shared with other people, and it has been just game changing for me, and it's made my life so much easier and better, and I'm getting things done faster. I love helping people. If you ask me for help, I am on it. I'm going to support you 100%, and I'm going to do the best that I can to make sure you have what you need. You need to clean out your house? Great. You need to move? Fantastic. I'm there. You just need a cheerleader? I'm there. And I thought to myself, if I feel that way about helping other people, am I taking that away from them by not asking for their help? Because if I light up helping other people, I want other people to also feel that way. And also, it helps me out too. So try not to be embarrassed asking for help or think that you're a burden, because personally, I love helping people. And most people I know have a really good sense of gratitude for being able to show up in somebody's life and support them when they need it. So it was just a mindset shift that I had that I think is really important to share. So just take a quick minute to think about what kind of help you need right now. Maybe what are you struggling with? What's a project that you're working on that you could use a little extra perspective and insight? And think about the people that can show up for you. And this could be somebody who is just going to be a cheerleader for you, and I'll talk about that in a second. It could be somebody who has a resource that you don't have that they would be willing to share with you. It could be somebody who knows like legal or policy or something that can help you get to where you're going, or they'll let you use their backyard to spray paint whatever, or whatever you're trying to achieve. Think about the different types of people that you could really use to support you in this journey, and don't be afraid to reach out to them. Oh, I don't know the title of the strawberry book, Jacqueline. I read about it in Devin Price's um, um, Unmasking Autism. I have the book on the thing behind me. So if you read Unmasking Autism, that concept comes out in the book, and I just thought it was so cool. So I took it for myself, but it's not Devin Price's idea. He was talking about somebody else. So, ooh, Renee, that's a good question. Okay, we're almost at question time, so I'm going to get to that for sure. But I do also want to bring in this concept of cheerleaders and champions. And Samwise Gamgee is my favorite, because he's both. The cheerleaders are the people that lift you up and say, yeah, you got this. I'm behind you. You can do it. And then there are champions. My friend Lacey wrote a book, The Prophecy of Blood and Flames, which actually she just released a 3rd book. It's a trilogy, and I'm about halfway through. It's really good. But when she wrote this book, her mom actually was on an airplane talking to her seatmate, who was a complete and total stranger, and said, hey, my daughter wrote a book. You should read it. And that person bought the book. And that's a champion. That's somebody who's going to show up and champion your work and show it to other people and help you achieve that goal. And both of those people are extremely important. Frodo never would have got that ring to Mount Doom if Samwise wasn't by his side, making sure he was protected, carrying him halfway up the mountain, taking the ring for a small amount of time. So it's so important to have those people in your life. And I hope that you've been inspired today to find out who those people are and make meaningful connections with them so that you can absolutely achieve your dreams. And I hope to see them all on TikTok, which would be amazing. We do have time for some questions. So I do want to get to Renee's question. How do you meet people who enjoy helping? Put it out to the universe. You could put it out to the universe. I love the idea of energy and you get what you put out. So sometimes it's just being willing to help other people. There's like a social currency, right? Like if I give you social currency, you're going to feel more inclined to give it back to me. So sometimes by helping people, you find other helpers. It's like the Fred Rogers quote, right? Like whenever there's times of trouble, look for the helpers. So keep an eye out wherever you go and see the people who are jumping to hold the door, see the people who are willing to volunteer. We just ran a big ice cream social event at our university, and I had so many people who are like, hey, if you need anything, just let me know. So just keep a really open eye and observe who you have around you. And then also there are some people who are very explicitly going to come up and say, hey, if you need help with this, let me know. And don't be afraid to tell them, yes, I need your help. Please come do this, because it makes it so much better. Norma, yes, thank you for contributing. You don't need to wait for finding those people, just ask. I definitely agree. Starting with small favors is often a good like test the waters and see who's going to show up for you and who doesn't. And also, if somebody says they're going to help and they don't, you go, okay, well, that was like the third time in a row. So maybe they're not my go-to person for helping with things. But also be creative because sometimes it's somebody you don't even know and you just shoot them an email to say, hey, I noticed your website. This sounds really cool. I was hoping you might be able to help me with this. Would you be willing to just sit down for 30 minutes and chat? And I have been so surprised at the number of people who are so generous with their time and willing to give that space. Awesome. We have time for maybe one more question. So we'll give that a second. I've been talking for a long time, so I'm going to take water while you guys type. Cool. And while we are doing that, I got to click in on the chat box. So just always remember, guys, you deserve love and respect just as much as anybody else, I promise. If something isn't serving you in your life, step away. And that step away could be just gaining a new perspective, but it could also be literally stepping away. Honor your tribe. Those are the best people that are ever going to support you. I have a friend that I've had for 25 years, and we just really like supporting each other and showing up as ourselves. And that's what's made that relationship so great. And dream big, absolutely dream big. This is huge because we don't often get the chance to do it. So thank you guys so much for being here. If something resonated with you today and you want to work through an issue that you're having, or you have a dream that you want to get really clear on your next steps, or hey, you just want to chit chat for an hour because I seem like the coolest person you know, by all means, I would love to talk to you guys. There's a QR code on the screen right now that you can scan. That will set you up with a calendar appointment for 1 hour to just chit chat about whatever's on your mind. And my email address up in the corner, audreycramercoaching@gmail.com. Shoot me any questions. If you want a list of books for recommendations of things to read, I am happy to share that. But otherwise, yes, I will post that link in the chat. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for being here. And let me make sure I can get this going. Cool. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to hand this over to Jenna. And while Jenna's talking, I'm going to pull up the link to schedule if you would like. So thank you guys so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Audrey. Thank you again for sharing your time and insights with us today. This was such a great session. And then also, finally, thank you all for attending and being here today. I will share the recording of this session in a follow-up email. So be sure to check your email for that. But you can also learn more about DreamBank's free upcoming programming at ampam.com/DreamBank and by connecting with us on our social channels. On behalf of the American Family Insurance DreamBank, we look forward to hosting you again soon. Until then, keep dreaming fearlessly. Thank you.